Chapter 562. The sun rose in the east. It was already the morning of the second day. On top of a steep mountain on the west side of the mysterious mountain, 3 disciples of the mysterious martial school stood there. Right next to them was an iron feather mysterious eagle. Among the 3 disciples, 2 of them were people Yi Chun had met before. They were the head disciple Yin Fengfeng and the 3rd disciple Miao Yin. The last one was a male disciple with a face as white as jade. He looked to be only 22 or 23 years old, which was the youngest among the 3. As for his real age, it was hard to tell. Head disciple, who is this Yi Chun? Our master is paying so much attention to him, asking you to take him to the Sky Martial Pavilion personally. The male disciple with the white face was called Ling Tianhao, the 4th disciple of the mysterious martial school. His real age was already 27 years old. Of course, to be able to train to peak level early Sea of Soul's realm at 27 years old was already a talent that could not be underestimated even in the Sky Martial region. If it were in the 4 regions, he would be at least one of the top warriors among the young generation. Even in the mysterious martial school, he would be one of the top martial geniuses. Yin Fengfeng laughed. Brother Ling, do not underestimate him. He is the new rising young king warrior of the southern region. His power is definitely not that big of a deal. Young king warrior of the southern region? This does not seem to be that big of a deal, right? It was not that Ling Tianhao looked down on Yi Chun, but in his eyes, the young king warriors of the southern region indeed did not have anything to be proud of, especially in the Sky Martial region. He reached the Sea of Soul's realm at 24 years old. However, what Yin Fengfeng said next made Ling Tianhao's expression change drastically. Everyone knew that the leader of the mysterious martial school, who was also their master, Xianhou, had reached the Sea of Soul's realm at 25 years old. This record had been the first in 1,000 years, and no one had been able to break it for decades. Even the 2 top martial geniuses in the Sky Martial region, who were said to be as powerful as their master, had only reached the Sea of Soul's realm at 25 years old. They did not break their master's record. He could not imagine that there would be a martial genius in the southern region who was even more talented than their master. Impossible. Ling Tianhao's first reaction was to refuse. Yin Fengfeng sucked in a deep breath. When master told me this news, I didn't believe it either. But master's words carry enormous weight. How could he lie? Hearing Yin Fengfeng telling him that it was her master, Ling Tianhao was still in shock and disbelief. After a long while, he let out a breath slowly. Impressive training talent. Perhaps it is only the training talent. Not necessarily. Yin Fengfeng looked at a black dot flying over. His speed has already reached master level. Whoosh! The black dot quickly enlarged. It was Yi Chun, dressed in blue with a long sword at his waist. Sorry for the wait. Cupping his fists, Yi Chun landed on the top of the mountain. We have just arrived as well. Let me introduce you. This is my 3rd sister disciple, Miao Yin. And this is my 4th brother, Ling Tianhao. Yin Fengfeng introduced. I already know senior sister Miao Yin, but this is my first time meeting senior brother Ling Tianhao. The 3 of them were all older than him, so it was not shameful for him to call them senior sisters and senior brothers. It is also my first time meeting Brother Yi. Please take care of me in the future. After knowing that Yi Chun's training talent was even more powerful than his master, Ling Tianhao did not look down on him anymore. Regardless, training talent was still a kind of talent, and it was the most direct way to reach a higher level. If the training talent was not good enough, then no matter how powerful the other talents were, it would be useless. Let's go. Miao Yin looked very calm, looking more like the head disciple than Yin Fengfeng. In the sky, the iron feather eagle carried the 4 and flew at an extremely fast speed, reaching 10 times the speed of sound, almost 15 times the speed of sound. The iron feather eagle was a rank 9 beast, and it was known for its speed. If it flew at full speed, it could reach 18 times the speed of sound, which was close to master-level warriors. But of course, traveling for a long time and traveling for a short time were obviously different. One could not just focus on speed, which would only waste time. After all, the iron feather eagle was not a flying puppet. It was made of flesh and blood after all. Judging from the efficiency of traveling for a long time, the iron feather eagle was just like Yi Chen's flying puppet. One was fast, while the other did not need to rest. The Sky Marshal Pavilion is located in the south of the Sky Marshal region and is called the South Sky Gate. According to the rumors, the Sky Marshal Pavilion has some kind of connection with the Treasure Holy Tower as well. People above 40 would not be able to enter, and people who have not reached the Sea of Souls realm would not be able to enter either. In the middle of the Sky Marshal Pavilion, there is a magical name wall. You can leave 1,000 names on it, and each name can stay there for 10 years. On the back of the Iron Feather Eagle, Yan Fengfeng was explaining the information about the Sky Marshal Pavilion to Yi Chen. Do I have to go there to leave my name? Yi Chen asked. Yan Fengfeng chuckled. Have you heard of this saying before? If you do not enter the South Sky Gate, it means that you have never been to the Sky Marshal region. The reason why the Sky Marshal region is called the sacred place for all the martial geniuses is because of the Sky Marshal Pavilion. Hearing her, Yi Chen smiled weirdly. So, only the young warriors who have reached the Sea of Souls realm would be considered to have been to the Sky Marshal region, and those who have not reached the Sea of Souls realm would be wasting their time. That Xie Zhiqiu was able to make a name for himself in the Sky Marshal region, so he was probably in the young generation. Yi Chen's guess was not wrong. Xie Zhiqiu had indeed only made a name for himself in the young generation of the Sky Marshal region. But when it was expanded to the entire young generation, it would not be worth mentioning at all. It must be really hard to leave one's name on the wall, right? Of course it is. Although the name wall is not really a ranking, it is still very useful as a reference. It includes all the top warriors within the last 10 years. Many of the famous martial geniuses from different regions would not even be able to make it into the top 1,000. Pausing for a second, Yan Fengfeng glanced at Miao Yin and Ling Tianhao and said, therefore, most of the martial geniuses would like to stabilize their power first. Only when they are unable to make it anymore would they go to the Sky Marshal Pavilion to leave their names there, so that it would not be too awkward for them to go there for the first time. Yi Chen thought about it and agreed with her. Reaching the Sea of Souls realm would be the weakest time for warriors of this level, so reaching the peak level of early Sea of Souls realm would be the most important thing. Once one reached the Sea of Souls realm, one's comprehensive ability would increase drastically, so it would be very important to increase one's mastery of profound sense martial arts as well. Right then, Ling Tianhao opened his mouth and said, the name wall is a place to judge one's potential. Being able to make it into the top 1,000 is already very hard, and it would be even harder to make it into the top 100. Once you make it in, the whole Sky Marshal region would know your name. As for the top 10, those would be the top martial geniuses. With Brother Ye's potential, it should not be a problem for you to make it into the top 100. Actually, Ling Tianhao still had some doubts about Yi Chen's potential. Being talented in training was indeed very important, but the other aspects were just as important. In the history of the True Spirit continent, there have been some martial geniuses who were talented in training, but normal in other aspects. Yi Chen chuckled but did not say anything. There was still a long way to go before they reached the Sky Marshal Pavilion. On the way, the four of them kept chatting. Yi Chen learned from Ling Tianhao that there were 2 disciples from the mysterious martial school who had made it into the top 1,000 on the wall. They were the head disciple, Yan Fengfeng, and the second disciple, Fu Yinhong. Yan Fengfeng's rank was ridiculously high. She was ranked 5th, while Fu Yinhong was a lot lower, ranked 57. Of course, it was a lot lower than Yan Fengfeng's, but in the whole True Spirit continent, it was undoubtedly a very high rank. After all, if one's name could stay on the wall for 10 years, then the names of the martial geniuses from 9 years ago would all be shown on it. The Iron Feather Eagle was indeed a rank 9 beast that was known for its speed. After 7 days, the 4 of them had managed to travel from the west side of the Sky Marshal region to the south side of the Sky Marshal region. On the afternoon of the 7th day, a mountain peak that reached into the sky gradually appeared in front of the 4 of them. It was a mountain peak that looked like a sharp sword. The peak seemed to have been shaved off by a sword, making it very flat. On top of the peak stood a magnificent building. On the door, there were 3 huge words written in a domineering style: Sky Marshal Pavilion. We are here. There are quite a lot of people there, and a couple of familiar faces. Yan Fengfeng's eyesight was extremely powerful. Even from dozens of miles away, she could still see the people there clearly. She could even tell the faces of the people there. Seeing the Sky Marshal Pavilion, Ling Tianhao's breathing was a bit heavier than usual. Obviously, he was not feeling calm at all. Miao Yin, who had been calm all the way, could not help it either. A bit of fighting spirit shone out from deep in her eyes. Only Yan Fengfeng and Yi Chen did not have much change in their expressions. The former had been to the Sky Marshal Pavilion once before, and this time, she had brought 3 people to leave their names there, which had nothing to do with her. The latter was attracted by the aura of the Sky Marshal Pavilion. In Yi Chen's eyes, the mountain peak and the Sky Marshal Pavilion were like a godly sword that could pierce through the sky. That aura was like a sword qi, piercing through the sky, which was extremely horrifying. Shoo! The iron feather eagle dove into the clouds, approaching the Sky Marshal Pavilion quickly. Iron feather eagle. They are from the mysterious martial school. It should be Yan Fengfeng from the Phoenix Martial School, who had brought her brother and sister disciples to leave their names there. At the foot of the mountain, someone had recognized the iron feather eagle and Yan Fengfeng. They did not fly directly to the pavilion, but instead, Yan Fengfeng ordered the eagle to land on a flat ground at the foot of the mountain. Yan Fengfeng, how have you been? A bald teenager with a powerful aura walked over with his brother and sister disciples. Yan Fengfeng laughed. Hi Wuya. Did you bring your brother and sister disciples here to leave their names? Indeed. The bald teenager named Hai Wuya glanced at Yi Chen, and the other 2. Your mysterious martial school already had 2 people who left their names on the wall. I did not expect that there would be 3 more this time. He brother and sister disciples have worked hard. Yan Fengfeng maintained the smile on her face the whole time. Then I will go first. There are so many people here. Hai Wuya led the group and left. This is Hai Wuya? Ling Tianhao stared at Hai Wuya's back. Yan Fengfeng said, yeah, he is extremely powerful, no weaker than me. He is ranked 10th on the wall. Oh right, maybe you guys do not know much about the wall yet. It is a magical wall. Later on, you guys will only need to pour your soul power into it, and it will form an independent mental consciousness body in the mental world inside the wall. It will have 30% of your power, and your opponent will be a virtual mental consciousness body with the same power. Once you beat a virtual one, you will be able to enter the next level, where the virtual mental consciousness body experience will be doubled, and so on and so forth. Remember, do not try to show off. If the mental consciousness body is wounded, it will make you think that you are wounded subconsciously, which will affect your real body. The more wounded the mental consciousness body is, the more the real body will be affected. There have been cases of real bodies falling in the past. Chapter 563. Mental Consciousness Body? Yi Chen's eyebrows twitched. Most of the information that the Battle King had sent into his head was related to training, so Yi Chen knew what it was. To be more specific, the mental consciousness body was something that came out of a mother body with a soul. It did not have a consciousness, and it was similar to a mental projection. However, in terms of complexity, it was much more powerful, and the power it could carry would be way more powerful as well. Of course, the Battle King had not trained a mental consciousness body yet. Therefore, Yi Chen did not know much about it, but he had a general idea. Let's go up. Yan Fengfeng led the way up the mountain. The path leading to the top of the Sky Marshal Pavilion was a 10,000 meters long and 100 meters wide staircase. After every 1,000 steps, there would be a spacious staircase. The second he stepped on the staircase, he finally realized why no one had flown up directly. The whole mountain was covered with a layer of invisible seal, and there was no way to use the air as a stepping stone. All he could do was walk up step by step. After a whole 15 minutes, the 4 finally got to the top from the foot of the mountain. So many people, stepping through the gates of the Sky Marshal Pavilion. The four of them were greeted by a spacious and magnificent plaza. In the middle of the plaza, there was a 100-foot-tall screen wall. Surrounding the screen wall were hundreds of young men and women who were younger than 40 years old. The pavilion only opens once a year, so it is normal for there to be a lot of people. Yan Fengfeng had already gotten used to it. The wall was very tall, and the four could see all the names on it at first glance. Dugaju number 1. Dantai Mingyue number 2. Yan Fengfeng number 5. Indeed, Yan Fengfeng was ranked number 5. Being able to be ranked number 5 out of 1,000 names, her potential was already shocking enough. Yan Fengfeng explained, "Rank number 1 and 2 are the top 2 martial geniuses of the Sky Martial region. They might not be the most powerful among the young generation, but they are definitely the most talented. Look at the color of the names. White means within the 3rd level, blue means to the 4th and 5th level, and red means to the 6th and 7th level. If one could make it through all 7 levels, then the color would be purple." So far, only Duguju and Dantai Mingyue had made it through the 7th level, and their names would be purple. Hearing him, Yichen took a closer look at the wall. On the wall there were 2 purple names, around 50 red names, and most of the blue ones. There were more than 800 blue ones, and the white ones had decreased drastically, only around 100, which was at the bottom of the list. If you want to leave your name on the wall, you would have to at least make it to the 3rd level. The longer you can last in the 3rd level, the higher the success rate would be. As she said that, Yan Fengfeng sighed. She was the descendant of the phoenix, and her potential was unparalleled. Normally, it would not be hard for her to be ranked number 1 or 2. But the 4 people in front of her were just too freaky, especially Duguju and Dantai Mingyue, who had made it through all 7 levels directly. "Head disciple, is it that hard?" Ling Tianhao asked. Yan Fengfeng let out a breath and said, "The 1st level is a virtual consciousness body with similar power as you. The 2nd level is 2, the 3rd level is 4, and the 4th level is 8. With each level, the number will double, and the difficulty will also double. Do you think it is hard?" "Then the 7th level would have 64? Ling Tianhao gasped, and even Miao Yin and Yichen looked serious. Yan Fengfeng said with a low voice, "The wall tests battling techniques, mental power, and potential after being pushed to the extreme. Although cultivation and power have some effect, it would be suppressed to a very small extent. After all, the virtual consciousness body inside has the same power as you. If you are more powerful, it would be more powerful as well. I wonder what rank I would be able to get." Before coming here, Ling Tianhao was full of confidence. But now, he was only left with pressure and battle intent. Yichen understood what Yan Fengfeng meant. The wall tested one's potential, and it had nothing to do with cultivation or power. But of course, just like what Yan Fengfeng had said, although the latter two had been suppressed a lot, they still had some effect. For example, if one's power was higher, they would be able to sense more things, and their battling styles would be more unpredictable, which would increase their potential. "Yi Chen, you are here as well." Right then, someone yelled out Yi Chen's name. Yi Chen turned around and saw the Thunder Princess Jing Aoshuan and the Edict Prince Li Xiaoyan. The two had both reached the Sea of Souls realm, just like him, at peak level early Sea of Souls realm. A smile appeared on his face as Yi Chen said, "What a coincidence." Li Xiaoyan said, "It is not a coincidence at all." Yi Chen chuckled. Li Xiaoyan was right. It was not a coincidence at all. The two reaching the Sea of Souls realm did not surprise him too much, since they had reached the peak level late astral reaching realm before him. They could make the breakthrough at any time. Plus, the Sky Martial Pavilion only opened once a year, so it would not be a coincidence at all to run into them here. Where is Chu Zhongtian? The relationship between Yi Chen and Chu Zhongtian was just normal. In the beginning, there was still some conflict between them, but it had gotten better after a while. Now it was just a competition between two people at the same level. Jing Aoshuan shook her head. He has the evil spirit body, so it would be extremely hard for him to make the breakthrough. Right now, he is still at the peak level late astral reaching realm. That is true. Yi Chen nodded. The evil spirit body trained the evil Yuan, which was a couple of times more powerful than the Zhen Yuan. It would be extremely hard for him to make the breakthrough. But of course, once he made the breakthrough, his power would increase drastically as well. At the astral reaching realm, he would be extremely powerful. And once he reached the Sea of Souls realm, he would only be even more powerful. In other words, Chu Zhongtian was born with good luck, and he would only get more and more powerful. Perhaps once he reached the Sea of Souls realm, Jing Aoshuan and Li Xiaoyan would not be able to compete with him anymore, unless they had some kind of great luck. This wall of fame is also a battlefield, a soundless battlefield. Li Xiaoyan suddenly sighed as he stared at the name on the wall in a daze. Yi Chen was not familiar with these people's names, but Li Xiaoyan was very familiar with them. He saw the names of the top warriors of the young generation in the southern regions. Some of them were the hosts of the previous tea gatherings, but their rankings were very low, below 500. Only one of them could make it into the top 100. The wall could test 10 people at a time, and there was no time limit. Of course, although it was said to be unlimited, it was actually very limited. If one spent too much time in the beginning, their spirit, qi, and soul would not be able to keep up, which would shorten the time. Haha, this time, I finally made it into the top 1000. An ordinary-looking teenager saw his name at the end of the wall after finishing his test, and his face was full of excitement. Everyone's attention was drawn over. Yi Chen frowned. He saw two familiar people. They were the East Demon Xie Zhiqiu and One-Blade Ling Luohan, who had caused a huge commotion in the tea gathering. These two had also entered the Sea of Souls realm, leaving an empty spot. One-Blade Ling Luohan walked up and began his test. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Ling Luohan opened his eyes. At the same time, the last 100 names on the wall moved back one by one, and Ling Luohan's name appeared at the 99th place. I have to say that Ling Luohan's potential is very high. Jing Aoshuan had lost to Ling Luohan before. Although Li Xiaoyan did not lose to Ling Luohan, he had to admit that he was not Ling Luohan's opponent in the tea gathering. As for now, he did not have the confidence to win for sure, but he did not think that he would lose for sure either. He has gone down the wrong path of the blade art. Wanting to correct it in a short period of time would be very hard. In Yi Chen's eyes, Ling Luohan's potential would not be that much weaker than Xie Zhiqiu's, and could even be on the same level. Unfortunately, in order to pursue the efficiency of his blade art, he had gone down the wrong path of killing with one blade attack. It was indeed an evil path that could increase his power quickly, but it would also leave behind a lot of problems, which would slow down his progress in the future. The East Demon Xie Zhiqiu has started his test. A skinny teenager said, "The East Demon Xie Zhiqiu is quite famous among the young generation of the Sky Martial region. After reaching the Sea of Souls realm, he already has the power to compete with most of the top young warriors. I wonder what his rank would be. It should be very high." Dugaju and Dantai Mingyue had reached the Sea of Souls realm last year. They were the top of the young generation back then. Although their power would not be able to reach the top of the young generation, their potential would be unbeatable. Potential and power were two different things. A high potential did not mean that one's current power was high, and a high power did not mean that one's potential was high. The former would still need some time to increase their power, while the latter would have enough time. But the potential was obviously not there, and the former would eventually catch up. Kill. In that quiet world, Xie Zhiqiu had passed 3 levels in a row, and made it to the 4th level. There were 8 mental consciousness bodies in the 4th level, and each of them had the same power as him. The good thing was that the 8 of them did not have perfect teamwork. In fact, if they did, then there would be no way for him to fight. Even Dugaju and Dantai Mingyue would not be able to make it. In the 5th level, Xie Zhiqiu was wounded a little, and his real body outside of the wall let out a groan. In the 6th level, Xie Zhiqiu was killed within a second. So powerful. The real body opened its eyes, and Xie Zhiqiu could feel that he had just suffered an internal injury that he had subconsciously caused. Looking up at the ranking on the wall, a smile appeared on Xie Zhiqiu's face. Xie Zhiqiu number 22. In the past, although he had some fame in the Sky Martial region, it was only among the younger generation. He had not risen to the top of the younger generation. Although his current strength could not compete with the other famous youths, in terms of aptitude, he was ranked 22nd in the past 10 years. This was a very high ranking, and he was very satisfied with it. Wow, he is actually ranked 22. Scary. Among all the people who participated this year, Xiajiqiu's potential could be ranked at least in the top 3. Some of the people around gasped. The higher the ranking, the more difficult it would be. At the same time, it also meant that he would be more powerful in battling above his realm. The East Demon Xiajiqiu was indeed worthy of the title. Interesting. Hai Wuya and Yin Fengfeng nodded secretly. Although Xiajiqiu's potential was not as good as theirs, it was only a reference. His future achievements might not be worse than theirs. Hehe. Xiajiqiu turned his head to look at Yi Chen and the rest. When his eyes met Yi Chen's, a cold light shone out of his eyes, as if he wanted to battle. Chapter 564. On the martial tea gathering, Xiajiqiu had brought the top 3 young warriors from the eastern regions with him. He thought that he would be able to beat all of the top young warriors from the southern regions, without having to do anything himself. He had guessed the beginning, but could not predict the end. In the beginning, the top 3 young warriors from the eastern regions were indeed unstoppable. First they had beaten Li Xiaoyan, then Jing Aoshuan. When it came to Chu Zhongtian, although the situation was not as good as he thought, his defense was way too powerful, and there was nothing that could be done about it. Judging from the surface, even if Chu Zhongtian did not lose, he would still be at an absolute disadvantage. In the end, it was Yi Chen's turn. As soon as Yi Chen showed up, he had easily beaten Shadowless Whip Cui Yinghao and One Blade Ling Luohan. Even someone as powerful as Xiajiqiu had lost to him, without being able to fight back. The 4 had come with great power, but they had been forced back, leaving behind the legend of Yi Chen's invincibility. Xiajiqiu knew that without reaching the Sea of Souls realm, he would not be able to train his demon chi power spell to a higher level. Therefore, it would be hard for him to beat Yi Chen. Therefore, after returning to the eastern regions, he had been training hard, trying his best. Finally, he had reached the Sea of Souls realm half a year ago. In the following half a year, he had trained his demon chi power spell to the 5th level, which allowed him to increase his battling power by 5 times. Compared to the astral reaching realm, his power was like heaven and earth. After reaching the Sea of Souls realm, Xiajiqiu's confidence had increased drastically. He had been thinking about beating Yi Chen and restoring his glory, but the Sky Martial Pavilion only opened once a year. If he missed this chance, he would have to wait for another year. Therefore, he planned to go to the pavilion to test his potential first before finding Yi Chen for revenge. What he did not expect was that Yi Chen had also come to the Sky Martial Pavilion. There was no need for him to find him at all. This time, I will beat you like a dead dog. Thinking about how he had lost, Xiajiqiu tightened his fists, his face not looking very friendly. This guy is unrepentant, and still wants to cause trouble for Yi Chen. Li Xiaoyan and Jing Aoshuan sneered. They did not know how powerful Yi Chen was right now, but they knew that he was already so powerful at the astral reaching realm. Wouldn't he be even more powerful after reaching the Sea of Souls realm? The test was fast. Ling Tianhao and Miaoyin also went up to take the test. After a while, the names of the 2 people appeared on the wall. They were respectively 285th and 276th. This was a pretty good ranking. There were so many geniuses on the continent, and it was not easy to be ranked within the top 300 in terms of aptitude. Yi Chen, let's go take the test too. There were fewer and fewer people. Li Xiaoyan walked into the testing circle first, followed by Jing Aoshuan. Yi Chen nodded and walked into one of the 10 testing circles. Yin Fengfeng, he does not seem to be from the mysterious school, right? Hai Wuya told Yin Fengfeng. Yin Fengfeng said, he is a martial genius from the South Ridra region. South Ridra region? Hai Wuya frowned. A small martial genius from the South Ridra region was being led by Yin Fengfeng herself? What a great honor! Yin Fengfeng laughed. Hai Wuya, do not underestimate him. In the battle between the martial geniuses in the Sky Martial region, he will definitely be one of the main characters. Hehe. Hai Wuxia chuckled, but did not say anything. He thought that Yin Fengfeng was just trying to trick him. The Sky Martial region was not some region or some region. It was the center of the whole continent. All of the top martial geniuses were gathered there. And it would not be easy to make a name for oneself, not to mention being one of the main characters. Yin Fengfeng did not try to explain, because she knew that it would be useless. If she wanted to convince people, she would have to show some results. Anything else would just be empty talk. It was a dead silent world, without any signs of life. On the barren land, a blurry human figure was forming, and it was getting clearer and clearer. Facial features and clothes could be seen clearly. It was indeed Yi Chen in blue robes. Right then, he looked cold and numb, as if he did not have any consciousness at all. All of a sudden, Yi Chen's numb eyes flickered, and there was a light in them. Mental consciousness bodies do not have consciousness, and must be controlled by the main body. Yi Chen had an understanding. Mental consciousness bodies also had different levels. Obviously, this was the lowest level mental consciousness body. The higher level mental consciousness bodies could grow from not having consciousness to having consciousness, which was equivalent to a real clone, and did not need to be controlled by the main body. 100 meters in front of Yi Chen, a human figure appeared. It was a sword artist in yellow robes. His cultivation and will were the same as Yi Chen's, but his face was blurry. He has a sword but I don't. With that thought in mind, a sword appeared in Yi Chen's hand. One more. A sword appeared on Yi Chen's waist as well. Shoo! The sword artist in yellow robes charged over, throwing out a killing attack right from the start. It was a completely different attack from Yi Chen's. The sword light was sharp like a circular arc, sweeping across the sky. With a shake of his body, Yi Chen turned into a sword light, brushing past his opponent's sword light. The long sword in his hand was taken out of its scabbard, and with a flash, it was instantly extinguished. Puff! A head with an indistinguishable face flew up, and the sword artist in yellow robes slid on the ground, gradually dissipating into nothingness. One sword strike, a head flew off. The first level is not difficult. Although the virtual mental consciousness body's cultivation and will are the same as mine, its combat techniques are too standard. There is nothing special about it, and it is like a preset program. Yi Chen silently evaluated the virtual mental consciousness body's combat strength. About 3 breaths later, 2 more sword artists in yellow robes appeared. These two's faces were blurry, but their sharp gazes were like beams of light, locking onto Yi Chen. After locking onto him, it was time for a fierce attack, an attack that would not stop until one of them died. Kill! Yi Chen did not retreat or evade, but rushed toward the two. Puff! Puff! The 3 of them passed each other. The next moment, 2 heads flew into the sky, but there was no blood. The pressure is getting greater and greater. In a separate mental world, Li Xiaoyan rushed into the crowd, surrounded by a total of 16 people. These 16 people's cultivation and will were similar to his, and the power of their killing moves was not weaker than his. Even if their combat techniques were too simple, and there was no spiritual qi, they had 16 times more people than him. 16 people besieging him. The pressure was unimaginable. Bang! The iron fan closed, and Li Xiaoyan smashed the heads of 3 people in a row. However, he was punched in the back, and his body staggered out, passing through the gap between the 2 people in front of him. 7-star crossing. Suddenly turning around, Li Xiaoyan performed his trump card. Royal Extreme Tyrannical Fist. Royal Extreme World Shocking Fist. Jing Aoshuan did not blindly attack like before, and if she did not advance, she would retreat. Her body moved like lightning, wreaking havoc. With every punch, 1 person would be sent flying, and the strong power of thunder and lightning was like a chain of lightning in the starry sky, one after another. With a groan, Jing Aoshuan had suffered a serious internal injury. She was besieged by 16 people whose cultivation and will were not weaker than hers after all. Defeating them was not something impossible, but she would have to pay a heavy price as well. After the time of tea. Who is Li Xiaoyan? He is ranked 108. And Jing Aoshuan 95. The names on the wall flickered, and 2 more blue names appeared. They were indeed Li Xiaoyan and Jing Aoshuan. Not bad. That Jing Aoshuan is actually ranked above you. Xie Zhiqiu smiled lightly and said to Ling Luohan beside him. Ling Luohan said, their talents are indeed not weaker than mine. Although Ling Luohan was ranked above Li Xiaoyan and Jing Aoshuan, his talent was not necessarily above the two. After all, the relationship between talent and power was not completely proportional. It was much more complicated and hard to understand. It could only be said that there was a huge relationship. The real bodies opened their eyes. Li Xiaoyan and Jing Aoshuan smiled bitterly. They had both failed in the 5th challenge. I killed 13. How many did you kill? Li Xiaoyan asked. Jing Aoshuan said, 15. That's too bad. There were 16 people in the 5th challenge. After killing 15, there was only one left. Yi Chen has not come out yet. Li Xiaoyan looked at Yi Chen, who was in the other testing circle. Inside the mental world of the wall, the sword light crisscrossed like a spider web, covering hundreds of meters of space. Some of these sword lights were from the illusory mental images, and some were from Yi Chen. The sharp sword intent seemed to want to pierce through the mental world, shooting straight up into the sky. This was a world of cold sword chi. Kill. Yi Chen had pushed his battle skills to a new level. Sometimes he would have one sword in his hand, and sometimes he would have 2 swords. In the blink of an eye, no one knew how many swords he had thrown out. They only knew that as his body flashed, the illusory mental images would fall down one after another. The remaining illusory mental images were surprisingly more than 20 of them, densely packed together. This was the 6th challenge. Yi Chen had rushed to the 6th challenge in one breath. His opponents were 32 illusory mental images. Facing 32 illusory mental images, although it was not easy for Yi Chen, he was not injured at all. Being able to stay uninjured in the early stage of the 6th challenge meant that he was at least in the top 15. It should be known that Xie Zhiqiu had only beaten back one person in the 6th challenge before being killed instantly without any chance to fight back. Yi Chen twisted his body in the air, dodging a wave of sword light. He suddenly stepped back, dodging another wave of sword light. His body turned into a shadow, moving close to the ground. Dodging another wave of sword light, Yi Chen had integrated dodging skills into his battle skills. While dodging, he was also attacking. While attacking, he was also dodging. It was hard to tell whether he was dodging or attacking. He only knew that it was impossible to lock his body. Swoosh! 3 heads flew in a straight line. Yi Chen stopped his body and turned around. All the illusory mental images had disappeared. The 7th challenge, I wonder how difficult it is. In the outside world. What? The test is not over yet? Could it be that he has reached the 6th challenge? Many people began to pay attention to Yi Chen. They could clearly see that Yi Chen had taken the test together with Li Xiaoyan and Jing Aoshuan. According to the normal passing speed, he should have reached the 6th challenge by now. Of course, they did not expect that Yi Chen's passing speed was even faster than they had expected. He had already reached the 7th challenge. Amazing! As long as he could hold on for a while in the 6th challenge, he would be able to enter the top 15. If he could pass the 6th challenge, he would have a chance to enter the top 10. You should know that the higher you go, the more difficult it is, and the fewer people there are. It is impossible to pass the 6th challenge. On the wall of names, only 9 people have passed the 6th challenge and entered the 7th challenge. The 6th challenge was light red in color, and the 7th challenge was dark red. On the wall of names, besides Dugaju and Dantai Mingyue, only 9 people had dark red names. One could imagine how difficult it was to reach the 7th challenge. Chapter 565. Interesting. Wuxia chuckled, starting to pay more attention to Yi Chen. A genius who could reach the 6th level definitely couldn't be ignored. Indeed, there was a big gap between the 6th and 7th level, and he and Yin Fengfeng were both geniuses who had reached the 7th level. However, a genius who had reached the 6th level might not be much inferior to them in the future. After all, if the difference in talent wasn't too big, it was still possible to catch up. Talent was only a general reference, and couldn't be taken too seriously. How is it? Yin Fengfeng glanced at Wuxia and said. Wuxia said, His talent is indeed very high, not too far from us. He might even catch up. But, if he wants to become one of the main characters of the battle, he's still a bit lacking. You should know how abnormal those guys are. You and I can barely contend against them. Don't jump to conclusions yet. Let's keep watching. Yin Fengfeng also wanted to see how far Yi Chen could go, and whether he could reach the 7th level. The 7th level began. Yi Chen's sharp eyes stared ahead. Buzz! 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 The sound of spatial fluctuations rang out incessantly. As the sounds rang out, numerous figures appeared. They were so densely packed together that it was extremely terrifying. In the blink of an eye, 64 yellow-robed sword artists appeared 100 meters in front of Yi Chen. Although the yellow-robed sword artists were lifeless, the sword chi coiling around their bodies was extremely powerful. The sword chi of 64 yellow-robed sword artists converged together, causing numerous fine sword scars to appear on the barren land, and a formless shockwave spread out. Chop. If it were an ordinary person, they would definitely dodge at top speed and look for an opportunity to break them down one by one. Even if the chance wasn't big, it would still be better than facing 64 sword artists all at once. If 64 sword artists with cultivation base and willpower that were not inferior to one's own launched a round of attacks, no one would be able to block it, and they would certainly be annihilated. However, Yi Chen did the opposite. He withdrew his protective Zhen Yuan and used his sword light flying art. His speed soared to the limit as he crazily charged toward the crowd of sword artists. Swish! 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 The dozens of sword artists at the very front raised their hands, and their longswords sprinkled out crescent-shaped sharp sword chi. They interweaved together and shot toward Yi Chen like a huge net. Pop! On the way, Yi Chen suddenly accelerated. This was his true maximum speed. Dozens of beams of sword chi sliced behind him, bringing up waves of space ripples. At the same time, he himself passed through the gaps of the sword chi, his longsword out of its scabbard in a second. His unbreakable gold resonant radiant sword art had been unleashed right from the start, creating a golden sword light in the middle of the crowd. 3 heads flew up. Yi Chen suddenly restrained his breath and turned into a black shadow. He slid along the ground and shuttled through the crowd. At the moment when he moved close to the ground, at least 7 or 8 black shadows crossed each other. That sharp sword light directly left black marks in the air. If Yi Chen's speed was a little bit slower, or his reaction was a little bit slower, or if he hesitated even a little bit more, or if he continued to kill, he would definitely be dismembered by those 7 or 8 sword lights. What seemed like a flash of lightning actually contained too many things. At this moment, every second counted, and there was no room for mistakes. Voila! The remaining 61 yellow-robed sword artists spread out, exposing Yi Chen in the middle. Yi Chen sneered and stuck to the back of a yellow-robed sword artist like a shadow. Pooh! That sword artist fell down, but he did not die in the hands of Yi Chen. Instead, he died in the hands of other yellow-robed sword artists. The intense shockwave blew away Yi Chen, but it also blew him to the back of another yellow-robed sword artist. One after another, the yellow-robed sword artists fell down. If they had their own consciousness, they would definitely have died a miserable death. Void-shattering finger. The yellow-robed sword artists all spread out, and Yi Chen, who could no longer find anything to hide, pointed his finger at the 2 yellow-robed sword artists closest to him. That huge blue finger ignored the distance between them and pressed them down on the ground, rubbing the ground as it rushed forward, knocking away 3 or 4 yellow-robed sword artists, who were about to launch a new round of attacks. Boom! The shockwave spread out wantonly, accompanied by sharp sword chi flying everywhere. The whole area was constantly being cut by sword chi. Still not out? He must have reached the 7th level. As time passed, the contestants finished their tests one after another. More and more gazes fell on Yi Chen, and he immediately became the focal point. The 7th level has 64 mental consciousness bodies, with the same cultivation base and will. Apart from De Guju and Dantai Mingyue, there are only 9 people who can reach this level. From today onwards, it will be 10. Where did he come from? With such a high aptitude, it's impossible not to have heard of him before. He was brought by Yin Fengfeng. Phoenix sect Yin Fengfeng. No wonder. Everyone discussed among themselves, glancing at Yi Chun, then at Yin Fengfeng. Yin Fengfeng's reputation in the Sky Martial region was extremely great. In terms of identity, she was the head disciple of one of the 9 great sections. In terms of strength, she was already a Sea of Soul master, known as the Phoenix Master. In terms of speed, she was the number 1 in Sea of Soul realm. Yin Fengfeng's reputation in the Sky Martial region was not inferior to those famous young tycoons. How could the people she brought be weak? Hai Wuya's expression changed for the first time. He really didn't expect Yi Chun to be able to reach the 7th level. It seemed like he was still fighting in the 7th level without any signs of failure. Am I starting to believe what you're saying? Sucking in a deep breath, Hai Wuya retracted his gaze from Yi Chun and smiled bitterly, then said slowly, even if he is not one of the main characters of the battle, he will still be an important supporting character. There would only be a few main characters. The important supporting characters couldn't be ignored either. Sometimes, their role might not be any less than that of the main character. A scene was born between the main character and the important supporting characters. He actually made it to the 7th level. Xie Zhiqiu clenched his fists, not daring to believe his own eyes. He thought that he and Yi Chun were only a few millimeters apart, and that he could surpass him at any time. But reality had slapped him in the face, leaving him speechless. Ling Luohan didn't say anything. Yi Chen's astonishing performance was within his expectations. He didn't like Xie Zhiqiu, but he admired Yi Chen. On the other side, Li Xiaoyan and Jing Aoshuan sighed inwardly. In the southern regions, perhaps only Chu Zhongtian with his evil spirit body could be compared to Yi Chen. Of course, the premise was that Chu Zhongtian could catch up quickly and not be left too far behind. Otherwise, no matter how powerful his evil spirit body was, it would still be useless. Time passed bit by bit, and only the last batch of contestants remained. The 7th level is indeed dangerous. Every step is filled with killing intent. Yi Chen had never pushed himself to this point. Facing the encirclement of so many yellow-robed sword artists, his spirit chi and soul were maintained at their peak, not daring to relax in the slightest. He was clear that even the slightest bit of carelessness would result in his death. Shoo! 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 Sword light crisscrossed, interweaving into a web. Yi Chun was like a flying insect shuttling in the web, struggling with all his might, seeking a chance to survive. Meanwhile, those yellow-robed sword artists were like spiders in the web, forming groups of 3 to 5, constantly spitting silk at Yi Chun. At this moment, the 7th level had taken more time than the previous 6 levels combined, and there were still more than half of the yellow-robed sword artists left. Dual sword style. Crossing the 2 swords, Yi Chen sent a yellow-robed sword artist flying. However, he couldn't kill him, because there were several yellow-robed sword artists pincer attacking him. Shoo! Without any hesitation, Yi Chen flew back into the air. His Zhen Yuan reversed, and his body became like a mountain. Under the pull of gravity, he descended at an extreme speed. Boom! 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 Like fireworks, dozens of sword chi clashed together in the sky. This is really pushing me to the limit. Yi Chen's spirit was stretched taut. He had already displayed extraordinary strength, but the danger was getting more and more intense. If killing people in the 6th level was easy, then killing people in the 7th level would require 2, or even 3 or 4 times the effort. Here, killing or being killed was only a matter of a thought. Pung! Stepping on the shoulder of a yellow-robed sword artist, Yi Chen's body twisted, bringing the yellow-robed sword artist's body along as he spun like a tornado. Then, with a hook of his left leg, the latter's body involuntarily flew out and was sliced into 4 pieces by 3 sword chi. The time taken was too much, but it caused a huge uproar outside. How long is this going to last? Could it be that he's preparing to pass? Last year, De Guju and Dantai Mingyue spent half a day. It's easy to imagine how frightening the 7th level's difficulty is. It's already been half a day. While everyone was dumbfounded, Hai Wuya and Yin Fengfeng's expressions turned serious as well. They were the ones who had passed through the 7th level, so they knew very well what kind of situation it was. Although the number of mental consciousness bodies had doubled after each level, it was still within the acceptable range after all. However, at the 7th level, the number of people had suddenly increased from 32 to 64. This kind of difficulty was no longer just doubling. It was like the last straw that broke the camel's back. Every additional person would be a kind of torture, and the addition of 32 people would be simply hopeless. Yan Fengfeng was ranked 5th, but she had only killed 6 people. Hai Wuya, on the other hand, had killed 4. Apart from De Guju and Dantai Mingyue, they didn't think anyone could kill more than 10 people in the 7th level. But now, Yi Chen's appearance might break this rule. I didn't think he could make it this far either. Yan Fengfeng let out a deep breath. When her master told her that Yi Chen would have a shocking achievement, she was skeptical. After all, in the Sky Martial region, she had seen way too many martial geniuses, and Yi Chen was not one of them. Hai Wuya said, "The appearance of De Guju and Dantai Mingyue is already shocking enough, comparable to your master Xianhou. If another one appears, this era will definitely rise to another level and become a rare era." Deep down in his heart, he did not think that Yi Chen would be able to make it through, because he did not believe that there would be 3 martial geniuses in this world at the same time. Although these 3 martial geniuses had not grown up yet, and could not compete with the top young warriors, with their great potential, they would only need time to build up their achievements. Chapter 566. 45th. Slaughter, Endless Slaughter. Yi Chen had never experienced such a ferocious battle. This battle had pushed him to his limits again and again. His nerves were stretched like steel wires, ready to snap at any moment. He knew that he couldn't afford to have the thought of taking a breather. From the beginning of the battle until now, he had been holding his breath. If he let it out, it would truly be over. He would be utterly defeated in an instant. At this moment, he greatly admired De Guju and Dantai Mingyue. Since these two could pass the 7th level, their aptitudes were certainly frightening. Fighting across realms was as easy as eating and drinking, extremely simple. 46. Swinging his sword with his left hand to block the slash of a yellow-robed sword artist, Yi Chen raised his right hand. Sword light spilled out, and the opponent's head was sent flying. Rip. At the same time, Yi Chen shifted his position, dodging the sword light coming from behind. Although the sword light didn't hit Yi Chen, its aura left a clear mark on Yi Chen's shoulder. 47th. Dodging most of the incoming sword lights, Yi Chen spun in the air. His hands holding the 2 swords were like 2 wind wheels, intertwining sword lights shooting out. Wherever they went, the ground was riddled with holes, and the air was filled with sword marks. It was a scene of devastation. Puff! The yellow-robed sword artist closest to Yi Chen was devoured by the intertwining sword lights, sliced into dozens of pieces, and dissipated into nothingness. I've consumed too much power. After using this move, Yi Chen's complexion turned slightly pale, and blue veins popped out on his forehead. The power of consciousness avatars was not limitless. From the 1st level until now, he had killed 110 consciousness avatars. These avatars had the same cultivation base and will as him. Killing one was not easy, especially in the 7th level. Killing one was equivalent to killing 2 or 3 avatars in the 6th level. The difficulty had doubled, and the consumption was enormous. Even with his Sea of Soul realm cultivation base, he couldn't bear such consumption. Fortunately, the yellow-robed swordsman had also expended a lot of energy, and his condition had deteriorated. Otherwise, if this had continued, Yi Chen would not have been able to hold on. Retreating swiftly, Yi Chen took a deep breath and pointed a finger at the dense sword light that was coming at him. Bang! The gigantic cyan finger grew stronger and stronger, forcibly blasting away the threat. 48th, 49th. Borrowing strength from the void, Yi Chen advanced instead of retreating. With extreme speed, his body trembled, turning into dozens of shadows that engulfed the 2 yellow-robed swordsmen. With a flash of sword light, the 2 swordsmen fell to the ground. Hiss! Around the Wall of Fame, gasps could be heard. It's been 8 hours since he started the test. Even if he doesn't pass the 7th stage, he will definitely be ranked 3rd or 4th. Everyone's expression changed. Among them, the majority had stopped at the 5th stage, and only a few had made it to the 6th stage. If the 5th stage was already this hard, then the difficulty of the 7th stage would be beyond their imagination. Otherwise, how could only Dugaju and Dantai Mingyue pass the 7th stage and look down on all the other geniuses? This guy, Yan Fengfeng smiled bitterly. As a descendant of the Phoenix, she was not inferior to anyone in terms of talent. But she was only ranked 5th, being suppressed by the top 4. And now, she couldn't even maintain her 5th position, and was about to fall to the 6th. It was simply incomprehensible. In fact, Yan Fengfeng had still underestimated her own talent. This wall of names was used to test humans, and as a blue phoenix, it was inevitable that it would be biased. After all, humans and beasts were different in many aspects, and could not be treated as the same. Therefore, Yan Fengfeng's potential was similar to that of humans, and her potential as a beast was not completely tested, or perhaps only a part of it had been tested. Blue Phoenix could be mentioned in the same breath as the ancient 9-headed snake. Even if her talent was not as good as Dugaju and Dantai Mingyue, it would not be too far off. Yan Fengfeng, we can't let go of this kind of genius. Although our team is not weak, it will still be hard to compete with those top young warriors teams. With him joining us, our team will definitely be a lot more powerful. Plus, he is still growing. Wuxia smiled at Yan Fengfeng. Yan Fengfeng said, "Of course." There were countless geniuses gathered in the Sky Martial region. Walking in any random city, one could run into some geniuses. Geniuses were all very prideful, so it would be hard for them to not see eye to eye with each other. After a long time, small conflicts would gradually turn into hatred, and they would view each other as enemies. And there was strength in numbers. Even if you wanted to fight fairly with others, others might not necessarily fight fairly with you. If you didn't want to lose out, then you would have to have your own team and faction. In that case, regardless of whether it was fair or not, others would not be able to bully you. There were strong and weak factions, and Yan Fengfeng and Wuxia's faction could be ranked in the top 10. Unfortunately, besides the two of them, there were no other powerful figures. Yi Chen was undoubtedly the best candidate in their eyes. With him joining, they would be able to compete with those top young warriors factions in a couple of years. Plus, Dugaju and Dantai Mingyue were not to be trifled with either. The two's potential was horrifying. 59. Borrowing the momentum of falling, Yi Chen descended from the sky and slashed fiercely at the head of a yellow-robed sword artist. The sword blade streaked across the forehead, and the yellow-robed sword artist was cut in two. Huff! With only 5 yellow-robed sword artists left, Yi Chen took the opportunity to take a deep breath, calming his nerves that had been stretched to the limit. Shwa! 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 These 5 yellow-robed sword artists were not afraid of death, as they attacked Yi Chen from 5 different angles. Before they even arrived, their sharp sword chi was already like a bone-scraping steel blade. Unending nature. Following an unimaginable trajectory, Yi Chen turned around and passed through the gaps of the sword chi, piercing through the neck of the yellow-robed sword artist on the side. He then pulled out his long sword and drew a beautiful arc in the air, cutting off the top of another yellow-robed sword artist's head. Only 3 left. At this point in the battle, Yi Chen was almost exhausted. The power in his mental consciousness was almost squeezed out, and was no longer vigorous. Of course, the yellow-robed sword artist's battle strength was also greatly damaged. After all, they did not have much consciousness. Once their power was weakened, their battle strength would also be weakened. This made it easier for Yi Chen to kill them. Retreat. 2 swords crossed, 1 straight and 1 reverse. 2 crescent sword chi formed a hemisphere, and knocked away 2 yellow-robed sword artists, who were taking advantage of the situation. At the same time, the little finger of Yi Chen's right hand that was holding the sword hilt curled up, and a ray of lotus heart sword chi shot out, piercing the forehead of another yellow-robed sword artist. At the crucial moment, this yellow-robed sword artist shifted his body, using his shoulder to replace his forehead. Chi. With his shoulder injured, other than a slight pause in his body, he did not feel anything else. Lifelessly, he pounced at Yi Chen, waving his longsword flawlessly. Rumble! Yi Chen stomped on the ground, and a hidden force drilled into his opponent's foot, exploding violently. This was the earth explosion and sky shock that Yi Chen had used earlier. Although the earth explosion and sky shock couldn't heavily injure the yellow-robed sword artist, it still made him stagger and sway. Die! With a flick of his right wrist, Yi Chen mercilessly cut his opponent's body in half. His exhaustion was getting worse. Yi Chen gritted his teeth and rushed out while sticking close to the ground, his long hair fluttering in the wind. One of the two remaining yellow-robed sword artists rushed up, the longsword in his hand clashing with Yi Chen's longsword. Unfortunately, Yi Chen's momentum was fierce, and he pushed his opponent several miles away. Blazing sparks exploded between the two, soaring into the sky. The barren land cracked open, and Yi Chen blasted his opponent into the ground. His valiant fighting style changed Yi Chen's temperament. Turning around, Yi Chen looked at the yellow-robed sword artist. It's over. Stabbing the longsword in his left hand into the ground, Yi Chen took a deep breath. He didn't know where his exhausted body got strength from, but it flowed through the virtual meridians in his body and into his arms. The muscles on his arms suddenly swelled up, becoming sharp and angular like they were forged from steel. Bang! There were no fancy moves, just a straight slash. Yi Chen held his sword with both hands and slashed his opponent into the ground, burying half of his body in the ground. Without waiting for his opponent to react, another slash came down. This slash was simple, but it seemed to carry all of Yi Chen's concentration. It instantly broke the longsword raised above the yellow-robed sword artist's head. The longsword broke, and the yellow-robed sword artist fell. Sheathing his sword, Yi Chen looked around, only to see the boundless barren land in ruins. If the yellow-robed sword artist had a physical body, he would definitely be covered in corpses, and blood would flow like a river. Wang! Yi Chen's figure gradually became blurry, and finally, like the yellow-robed sword artist, he disappeared into nothingness. In the testing circle near the wall, Yi Chen's main body opened his eyes. There was a faint trace of fatigue, and his body was even showing signs of numbness. When everyone saw that Yi Chen had woken up, their scalps went numb. They hurriedly looked at the wall, and the third name on the first row was actually Yi Chen's name. A purple name. Third place purple name. He passed all 7 rounds. Scary, other than Dugu Ju and Dantai Mingyue. Who would have thought that another monstrous talent would appear? This is big news. Everyone couldn't control their emotions, and they started discussing fervently. He passed. Wuxia had a look of disbelief on his face. Passed. He is as famous as Dugu Ju and Dantai Mingyue. Yan Fengfeng knew that the third place was actually no different from the first and second place. The reason why Dugu Ju and Dantai Mingyue could be in front was because they had taken the test a year earlier than Yi Chen. If it were Yi Chen taking the test first, then Yi Chen would be the first place. Therefore, as long as it was a purple name, the talent would be the same. It was just that the ranking would be different. Xie Zhiqiu, you can't compete with him. Ling Luohan forced a smile and said to the absent-minded Xie Zhiqiu. Clenching his right fist, Xie Zhiqiu stared at Yi Chen. Originally, he wanted to have a battle with Yi Chen after the talent test and wash away his previous humiliation. But now he didn't have the slightest bit of confidence. He had been instantly killed in the 6th round, and Yi Chen had passed the 7th round. The gap between them was too big. There will be plenty of opportunities to wash away his previous humiliation. I don't believe that he can maintain his advantage forever. Chapter 567. Yi Chen did not know what Xie Zhiqiu was thinking, but even if he did, he would not care. In fact, running into Xie Zhiqiu here was not a big deal to him at all. If Xie Zhiqiu insisted on looking for trouble, then he would have to give him a taste of his own medicine and teach him a lesson. Right then, the benefit of training the first level of his undying body secret art, flesh recovery, had finally arrived. His body was obviously sore and numb a second ago, and his meridians were slightly damaged. But in the next second, all these hidden wounds had been healed up completely. Taking a deep breath, Yi Chen turned around and walked toward Yan Fengfeng and the rest. Congratulations, junior brother Yi. Yin Fengfeng smiled. Luck. Yi Chen had already seen his ranking. Your luck is indeed impressive. Dugaju and Dantai Mingyue have been fighting for a long time. And now, you are added to the mix. Dugaju and Dantai Mingyue were known as the twin stars of the Sky Martial region. Adding Yi Chen, it would be 3 stars, which would be even more spectacular. Hai Wuya walked over and said to Yi Chen with his fists held together, I am the head disciple of the Sky Ocean Martial School, Hai Wuya. I am a good friend of Yin Fengfeng. Brother Yi, let's meet up more often in the future. Although the Sky Ocean Martial School was not one of the top 9 martial schools, it was still a very powerful rank 5 martial school. As the head disciple of the school, Hai Wuya had personally come to befriend Yi Chen, which meant that he had already considered Yi Chen as a very important person. Yi Chen was not the kind of person who would keep people at arm's length. Since people were trying to befriend him, he had no reason to reject them. Plus, Hai Wuya and Yin Fengfeng seemed to be good friends, so their personalities should be guaranteed. Therefore, the two got to know each other for a while before starting to chat. There are countless forbidden places in the True Spirit continent. Some of them have already been discovered, and some have yet to be discovered. Among these forbidden places, there are some that even life and death realm warriors would have to think twice before going there. There are also some even more terrifying forbidden places that could kill life and death realm warriors. Of course, most of them are forbidden places that are suitable for us to explore. If there is a chance, we can all explore together and try to minimize the danger. Another benefit of being part of the Genius faction was that they could explore together. If only one person explored, the benefits would indeed be maximized, but the danger would also be infinitely greater. With more people, they could look out for each other. After all, a dead genius was no longer a genius. Definitely. Yi Chen did not reply half-heartedly. He had already heard about the dangers of the forbidden places. Not to mention him, who was only a normal Sea of Souls Realm Master-level warrior. Even a famous Sea of Souls Realm Master-level warrior would face great danger when entering the forbidden places. In comparison, the Blood Demon battlefield seemed much safer. Since the test is over, let's descend the mountain together. Yin Fengfeng laughed. Hearing her, the group of people left the Sky Martial Pavilion and walked down the mountain. On a hill near the Sky Martial Pavilion, 5 young men had appeared out of nowhere. They were all at the Sea of Souls realm, with the lowest being at peak level early Sea of Souls realm, and the highest being at peak level mid Sea of Souls realm. There were 2 people in the lead. The one on the left was a handsome young man with green hair, wearing a green leather armor and a red cape. The one on the right looked very old, with gray hair and a battle blade on his back. Before he even moved, an invisible blade aura surrounded the area, causing the plants to wither. Right next to the 2 was a slightly older young man in gray robes. He looked a bit similar to Yuan Yi and Yuan Hao, with bulky bones and a very aggressive aura. Yuan Jia, I heard that your Yuan family had suffered a big loss a couple of months ago. Your nephew Yuan Yi had not only been robbed of his fiancée, but he had also been wounded badly. The handsome young man had a good relationship with the young man in gray robes, so he did not hold back his words at all. The young man in gray robes said coldly, he is lucky that I ran into him. I will make him kneel down and beg for mercy. The young man in gray robes was Yuan Ye's youngest uncle, Yuan Jia. He was 38 years old this year, and had been traveling around the world for years. Later on, he got together with the handsome young man, and joined the latter's faction. 2 months ago, he had returned to the Yuan family, and found out about this. He was so mad that his face turned green, and he swore to himself that he would teach Yi Chen a lesson. As for how the handsome young man found out about this, he did not know either. The 2 had agreed to meet here, and they had just bumped into each other. Alright, you and Ling Ku wait here. I will take my brother disciple to test his potential. As he spoke, the handsome young man took a step forward, leading the other 2 toward the Sky Martial Pavilion on the mountain. On the stairs, the handsome young man and the other 2 ran into Yi Chen's group. I was wondering who it was. It is Yin Fengfeng from the Phoenix Martial School, and Hai Wuya from the Ocean Martial School. The handsome young man had recognized Yin Fengfeng and Hai Wuya. So he chuckled. Hai Wuya frowned. What a coincidence. Running into the famous ice spirit martial school's Duan Lingya here. The two both had the word Lingya in their names, but they were like fire and water. Let's catch up when we have time. Thank you so much for last time. Duan Lingya was not afraid of Hai Wuya, but Yin Fengfeng was afraid of everyone. Her speed was the #1 in the Sea of Souls realm, and no one would be able to compete with her. Saying that with a bit of pride, Duan Lingya led his brother disciple and walked past Yi Chen's group. Ha! Hai Wuya's face suddenly turned cold. Last time, he had brought a group of martial geniuses from his faction to find an ancient ruin, which contained a lot of good stuff. He did not expect that Duan Lingya and the rest would follow them and take most of the things. Although he did not like Duan Lingya, he had to admit that the latter's power was slightly higher than his. Brother Hai, who is this person? Yi Chen did not know much about the martial geniuses in the Sky Martial region, which was why he asked. Yin Fengfeng helped Hai Wuya introduce. This person is the head disciple of the Ice Pavilion, one of the top 9 martial schools. People call him Duan Lingya from the Ice Spirit Martial School. Although he is not one of the most famous young warriors, he is just below them. His reputation and power are both very powerful. He had once frozen 300 miles of river with one palm attack. Jing Aoshuan and Li Xiaoyan sucked in a breath of cold air, freezing a 300-mile river with only one palm attack. This kind of power was beyond their imagination. It seemed like they still had a long way to go. At least, compared to those famous martial geniuses in the Sky Martial region, there was still a huge gap between them. Arriving at the foot of the mountain, Hai Wuya was about to say goodbye to Yin Fengfeng and Yi Chen and bring his brother and sister disciples back to the martial school. Yi Chen, stay! A loud yell was heard, shaking the whole area. Not far away, a gray shadow flew over and landed on the empty ground 100 meters away. It was a young man in gray robes with 2 sword sticks on his back. Yi Chen turned his head and looked at him. His aura is a bit similar to Yuan Yi and Yuan Hao. Are you from the Yuan family? Yi Chen knew what was going on immediately. Although there were a lot of young warriors who came to the Sky Martial Pavilion to take the test, it was already afternoon, and most of the people who came to take the test had already left. There were not many people left. Therefore, once Yi Chen arrived at the foot of the mountain, he was noticed by Yuan Jia. You are from the Yuan family? Yi Chen asked. Yuan Jia glanced at Hai Wuya and Yin Fengfeng with a bit of fear. Before, he had only noticed Yi Chen, but did not expect that there would be 2 famous young martial geniuses right next to him. Indeed, I am Yuan Ye's uncle, Yuan Jia. Yi Chen, you are so despicable. How dare you break into our Yuan family and hurt my nephew? If you do not give me an explanation today, don't even think about leaving. What are you? Stop yelling. Hai Wuya was not happy. That gentle temperament of his suddenly changed. With him as the center, the whole world seemed to have turned into a vast ocean, oppressing all of the young warriors who were watching from the side. They all backed out with a shocked expression on their faces. Yuan Jia, who was in the front, had a pale face as he backed out a couple of steps. Hai Wuya, this is between me and Yi Chen. I hope you will not get involved. Yuan Jia took a deep breath and said with a low voice, I will give you 3 breaths time. Leave now. Hai Wuya did not give him any face at all. Yuan Jia's expression was extremely bad as he looked at Hai Wuya with hatred. Yuan Jia, what is it? Right at that moment, a warrior flew over from the sky. As he moved toward them, a wave of withered blade aura spread out like lightning, splitting apart Hai Wuya's ocean aura. The ground under everyone's feet started to wither and turn black. Hai Wuya's aura has combined the profound of water, and this guy's blade aura has combined the profound of withering plants. This is a realm that I have yet to step into. Yi Chen knew that there was still a big gap between him and the two. The path of martial Tao would never have an end, and he had only just started. Either Hai Wuya or this blade artist could easily beat him, and he could tell from their auras. Withered Blade School's Lin Ku. Hai Wuya's eyes squinted. The gray-haired teenager glanced at Hai Wuya and Yin Fengfeng before landing on Hai Wuya. Were you the one who told Yuan Jia to leave just now? So what if I was? Just because of this sentence of yours, you will have to leave something behind today. Hee hee, others might be afraid of your withered blade school, but Hai Wuya, am not. Use whatever tricks you have. Hai Wuya was originally standing up for Yi Chun. Now that the other party was bullying him, how could he back off? I have made some progress recently. I will use you as a sacrifice to my blade. Lin Ku's tone was very calm, carrying a deathly cold killing intent. Bang! As the two's auras clashed, a volcanic aura erupted. Under this aura, everyone felt as if they could see the earth's crust cracking open, lava rolling, and a phoenix rising from the ashes. It was Yen Fengfeng. As the head disciple of the mysterious martial school, her strength was just as powerful as her reputation. Lin Ku, I would like to experience your blade arts. With a blue flame burning between her brows, Yen Fengfeng walked out step by step. Her noble temperament made people unable to look at her directly. Under her flame-like aura, the ground around her started to smoke, and the scorch became even more intense. Even Lin Ku's blade aura was forced back. Phoenix Sex Yen Fengfeng is indeed worthy of my blade. The blade on Lin Ku's back pulsed, as if it could be unsheathed at any moment. At the same time, waves of threatening blade chi spread out, leaving fine blade scars in the void. Lin Ku, forget it. I only want to teach that kid named Yi Chun a lesson. It has nothing to do with others. Yuan Jia knew that it was impossible for Lin Ku to fight 1 against 2. His target was Yi Chun. Hearing these words, the blade on Lin Ku's back stopped pulsing. He followed Yuan Jia's gaze and looked at Yi Chun. Yi Chun, get the hell out here. Chapter 568. Lin Ku's roar contained his all-conquering and all-withering blade aura. It was like a huge blade cleaving at Yi Chun from a distance. If struck by this invisible blade, even an expert of the same level would be battered and spiritually dispirited. Humph! Yi Chun took a step forward, and his sharp slaughter sword aura collided with the invisible blade. The air crackled, and crushed stones floated in the air. This sword aura has not combined with profound. It's an attributed sword aura. Lin Ku was astonished. His aura doesn't lose to withered blade master Lin Ku at all. Hai Wuya and Yen Fengfeng exchanged a glance. They felt that they had underestimated Yi Chun. Not bad. Lin Ku sneered. Same to you. Yi Chun didn't fear his opponent's blade aura at all. His strength was indeed not Lin Ku's opponent, but suppressing him with aura was simply a dream. His peak 4th step slaughter sword spirit was comparable to a peak 5th step sword spirit, and the sword aura he emitted was also comparable to a peak 5th step sword aura. Of course, this was only a one-sided comparison. If a true life and death king were here, his aura would certainly be superior to Yi Chun's. After all, King's usage of aura was far superior to Yi Chun's. Yi Chun, do you dare to fight? Yuan Jia wasn't surprised by Yi Chun's sword aura. He had already heard from his clansmen that Yi Chun's attainments in sword intent were quite exceptional. Since sword intent was exceptional, sword aura naturally wouldn't be bad. After all, sword aura was much cruder than sword intent. It was merely a simple and barbaric eruption, used to suppress the opponent. If you want to fight, then let's fight. Yi Chun didn't fear battle. Fighting was the nature of living beings. Good. Yi Chun, I'll make you pay for the humiliation you've brought to Yuan family today. Don't blame me for not giving you face. This is what you asked for. Yuan Jia's aura suddenly erupted like a mountain, incomparably heavy. As his aura spread out, the surrounding crowd quickly retreated, leaving enough space for the two to fight. Boom! Bouncing off his knees, Yuan Jia rose from the ground. The thick sword mace on his back fell into his hands, and he fiercely smashed it down. There was nothing fancy about this mace. It was heavy and powerful. As it smashed down, a straight line of the ground caved in. Unsheathing the gold sword, Yi Chun took a deep breath and straightened his body. The sword body clashed with the mace, and the two forces crushed each other, causing the color of the sky to change continuously. Muffled thunder rumbled unceasingly, and with a final clap of thunder, the two of them separated. Didn't you want to get it back? I'm afraid you don't have the strength to do so. A golden radiance shone as Yi Chun held the sword with both hands and dashed towards Yuan Jia at an extreme speed. The golden sword in his hand drew out a golden sword light that looked like a heavenly river. The sword light became longer and longer, and the sword energy contained within it was extraordinarily terrifying. The sword fiercely hacked at Yuan Jie's sword mace. Clang! Blazing sparks blossomed like flowers. Yuan Jie let out a muffled groan as his feet left the ground, and he was sent flying several li away like an arrow. Damn it! Yuan Jie stopped his body as his aura rose rapidly. If you want to get it back, I'll beat you until you don't dare to. Yi Chen's sword aura was like a rainbow as he slashed out again. Boom! Yuan Jie was sent flying several li away again. Pung 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 pung. Yi Chen was extremely horrifying when he went berserk. Inside the mental world of the Wall of Names, he had killed all the illusory consciousness. Although his power did not increase significantly, his fighting style had become much more ferocious, and his fighting techniques had become much simpler as well. Gasp! Everyone was chasing after the two. Seeing Yuan Jie being completely suppressed by Yi Chen without any power to fight back, they could not help but take in a cold breath. Yi Chen was indeed powerful, but no matter how powerful he could not be more powerful than Lin Ku, Yin Fengfeng, and the others. What shocked them was Yi Chen's ferocious style. Yuan Jie was only at a slight disadvantage before being forced back repeatedly, unable to fight back at all. With this retreat, he was hundreds of li away. The only thing Yuan Jie could do was to defend with all his might. If he did not defend, then he would lose. A mountain was cut off, and Yuan Jie's arms started to bleed. Yi Chen, don't push it too far. With a roar, Yuan Jie took on Yi Chen's sword chi head-on. His back bent as black scales appeared. The moment the scales appeared, Yuan Jie's upper body doubled in size. His back bulged like an iron plate, and his clothes were torn apart instantly. Gold resonant radiance. Yi Chen's speed soared as he waved out a golden sawtooth sword light. The sawtooth sword light tore through the sky, carrying a high-frequency vibration power, as it slashed toward Yuan Jie at lightning speed. A huge sound was heard, but this time, Yuan Jie only backed out 100 meters. It's my turn now. Grinning cruelly, Yuan Jie ignored the bleeding between his thumb and forefinger, as he teleported while holding the thick mace, smashing it toward Yi Chen. Behind him, a black chi flow rolled out, covering half of the sky. Along with his attack, it seemed as if the entire space was moving. Clang! 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 The two fought from the sky to the ground, and from the ground to the water. Wherever they went, dust and smoke filled the air. Rocks shot into the sky, and mountains fell one after another. Die for me! Yuan Jie had 2 maces in total. He had only used one before. But at the critical moment, he reached behind his back with his left hand, and pulled out the second thick one, sweeping it out unexpectedly. Reverse sky thundercut. Yi Chen did not even look at it. He held the emerald longsword in his left hand and slashed out, clashing with the opponent's mace. Both of them are using 2 weapons. Yuan Jie is not simple. He actually managed to turn the situation around. The demi-demon family's demonic transformation ability should not be underestimated. Yuan Jie's battle power has increased by at least 10 to 20%, but the chances of him suppressing the opponent are very small. The surrounding crowd was in a heated discussion. Bang! The two separated once again. Yi Chen, to be able to force me to this degree, you should be proud. Next, I will make you kneel and beg for mercy. Yuan Jie stood on a tall mountain. The black chi flow behind him was ceaselessly rolling, seemingly brewing something. The 2 maces in his hands were suffused with a black light. Floating in the air, Yi Chen tightened his grip on the sword hilt and coldly said, "Bring it on. I will crush your extravagant hopes. You have a sharp tongue. Let's see how long you can be arrogant." Kacha! The mountain sank several meters and cracks spread everywhere. Yuan Jie spread out his hands, and a black ball of light condensed at the tip of the 2 maces. The ball was only the size of a thumb, and it spun crazily, emitting a frightening whining sound. Amidst the whining sound, black lightning scuttled out. This move will make your blood splash 5 steps away. Demonic light wave. Swoosh! Yuan Jie shattered the mountain, and with a flicker, he appeared dozens of meters in front of Yi Chen. He raised both of his arms high, and the two thick maces smashed down fiercely. On the way down, the tips of the maces collided together, and with a rumbling sound, the sky suddenly darkened. The two black light balls at the tip of the maces fused together, turning into a black energy light wave that blasted toward Yi Chen. This energy light wave was like an angry black dragon, carrying black lightning with it. It was unstoppable, and as fast as lightning. Die. Yuan Jie's face carried a sinister smile. The Yuan family was the main family of the demi-demon family, so they had mastered a lot of demon race martial arts that had been passed down from the ancient era. The Demon Gold Flash and Demon Light Wave were two of them. The Demon Gold Flash had an extreme attacking power, and although the Demon Light Wave was not as powerful in this aspect, that black lightning was extremely destructive. Only a trace of it would be enough to destroy a mountain. Under the demonic light wave, Yuan Jie did not believe that Yi Chen could block it. Break for me. Yi Chen neither retreated nor dodged. Crossing his two swords, he faced the black energy light wave head-on. At the place where the two swords crossed, there was shockingly a dark blue thunder lightning ball. This thunder lightning ball was the combination of Sky Thunder Cut and Reverse Sky Thunder Cut. It was a destructive thunder lightning ball, which was somewhat similar to Yuan Jie's demonic light wave. The moment the black energy light wave and the dark blue thunder lightning ball collided, the surrounding space immediately warped and the earth quaked. After a loud boom, the surrounding mountains within a radius of several dozen li were razed to the ground. Countless rocks and shattered plants were swept up into the sky by the frightening rotating chi energy. With a crackling sound, the rocks and plants were chopped into pieces by the dark blue and black lightning. Rumble! Only at this moment did the black energy light wave and the dark blue thunder lightning ball erupt with their greatest might. A 10 meters thick and several thousand meters long lightning light beam struck down, striking the center of the two and swallowing them. Swoosh! Yuan Jie rushed out of the lightning light beam with a huge amount of blood dripping down from the corner of his mouth. He roared, "Impossible! You actually blocked out the demonic light wave." He knew the power of the demonic light wave better than anyone else. It was a move that could destroy an entire city. With the dragon-like thunder power coiling around his body, Yi Chen raised his head, his face slightly pale. Nothing is impossible. Although he said that, Yi Chen could not help but sigh at Yuan Jie's battling power. Morong Jishui had said that Yuan Yi was stronger than Yuan Jie, but judging from the current situation, Yuan Jie was not just one level stronger than him. The others had their limbs demonized or half of their chest demonized, but Yuan Jie had his upper body demonized. Moreover, the demonic light wave performed by Yuan Jie was much more powerful than Yuan Ye's demonic gold flash. Lose! Putting the emerald longsword back into its scabbard, Yi Chen reached out his left index finger and pointed at Yuan Jie. Boom! The huge blue finger ignored the distance of dozens of meters and landed on Yuan Jie's protective Zhen Yuan, blowing him away. Blood splashed everywhere in the sky. You dare to hurt my people? Piss off! Anger brewed in Lin Ku's eyes as he suddenly pulled out the battle blade on his back and threw out a blade attack at Yi Chen. A gray blade light with a desolate power extended out endlessly. Lin Ku, how shameless can you be? Hai Wuya threw out a palm attack from a distance. This palm attack seemed to have brought an endless ocean with it. Wave after wave of palm energy surged out, attacking the gray blade light. Boom! The blade light was deflected, slashing on the ground near Yi Chen. The ground immediately split open, and a water column soared into the sky. It turned out that Lin Ku's blade had directly pierced through the ground, cleaving out the water. Seeing this scene, the spectators were all indescribably shocked. Chapter 569. Hai Wuya, you dare to stop me. Lin Ku's gaze turned to Hai Wuya as he threw out a blade attack. He did not put Hai Wuya in his eyes at all. Lin Ku, I have not settled the score with you guys from last time. Today, I will settle it all together. Hai Wuya let out a breath that he had been holding in, and a massive deep ocean swirl appeared behind him. It spun slowly but powerfully, providing Hai Wuya with a lot of power. Boom! His feet slightly sank as he put his 5 fingers together and threw out a palm attack toward the blade light. On one side was the blade light that contained the withering profound, while on the other side was the palm power that contained the profound of water. The two were like water and fire. The moment they clashed, waves of shockwaves shot out in all directions, spreading out for dozens of miles. Limitless ocean. The bald Hai Wuya leaped up from the ground. His left hand was placed in front of his chest, while his right hand twirled in the air. Boundless water elemental chi gathered and merged into his palm. With a loud shout, Hai Wuya attacked with his most powerful palm strike. This palm strike contained a torrential force of water. Spring returns to withered tree. Lin Ku, who had long gray hair, had a cold expression on his face. He gripped his blade with both hands and charged into the sky, slashing out again and again at the powerful palm energy. His blade technique was profound to the extreme, and in the deathly stillness, it erupted with the mighty force of a withered tree returning to spring. Every slash caused the powerful palm energy to divert. Boom, boom, boom. The two famous young martial geniuses seemed to have a grudge against each other for a long time. The fight between Yi Chen and Yuan Jia was only a spark. Head disciple, are you not going to help? Ling Tianhao said to Yin Fengfeng. Yin Fengfeng shook her head. All martial geniuses have their own pride. Hai Wuya's power is not that much weaker than mine. If I go up and help, it will only make him unhappy. Yeah. Ling Tianhao nodded as he focused on the battle between Hai Wuya and Lin Ku. He was extremely excited, wondering when he would be able to reach this level. The conflict between the factions is indeed intense. Yi Chen could tell that he had become the excuse for both sides to explode. Even without him, they would find other excuses. But comparing the two, it was obvious that Lin Ku was the one who was being aggressive. Boom! Hai Wuya and Lin Ku exchanged an attack, and both of them were blown away. Hai Wuya, my profound of withering doesn't feel good, right? You are destined to lose if you fight with me. Lin Ku's clothes were torn and tattered, making him look like a beggar. However, his eyes were shining brightly and filled with battle intent. His entire being was like a blade. Hai Wuya's face was unnaturally pale, and there were a few inconspicuous saber wounds on his body. He laughed coldly. Don't force yourself. Under the might of my palm, it's impossible for you to remain unscathed. The victor is still unknown. Hee, I really want to see who will be the first to give up. Lin Ku stared at Hai Wuya. Bring it on. I'm not afraid of you. As Hai Wuya's voice faded, the water yuan qi in the air suddenly froze, turning into ice shards that scattered in all directions. In the next instant, the surrounding temperature suddenly dropped by 10 times. A gust of cold wind blew past, causing the broken stones on the ground to crack and explode. Frozen land and river. A cold voice rang out. In the distance, a vast expanse of whiteness spread out rapidly. That momentum was like the arrival of an ice age, freezing everything. Crack! Crack! Hai Wuya did not have time to react, and was frozen by the ice yuan qi. The water yuan qi around him also became an accomplice, joining in the freezing process. Within a blink of an eye, a massive ice statue was formed, and in the center of it was Hai Wuya. Besides Hai Wuya, the rest of the bystanders were not having a good time. They were all trying their best to defend against the invasion of the ice-cold power. Their protective Zhen Yuan was covered in a thick layer of frost. Yi Chen held his gold sword in his hand, slicing apart the incoming ice-cold power again and again. The sword light clashed with the ice that was formed by the ice-cold power, exploding into the sky. The ice shards shone with a colorful light under the sunlight. Down below, the mountains and rivers had all started to freeze, and everything was dead silent. Duan Lingya, do you really think that you are unbeatable? Right next to Ling Tianhao and Miao Yin, a burning blue flame exploded out. It was indeed Yin Fengfeng, who had attacked out of anger. She pushed out both of her hands in front of her, and that rich fire power spread out in a fan shape, attacking toward the source of the ice power. That handsome young man with green hair and green leather armor. Ice and fire were not compatible. Ice and fire 9 layers. Right then, it was the battle between the fire power and the ice power. The conflict was even more intense than the battle between Hai Wuya and Lin Ku, since the two Zhen Yuan and Profound did not reject each other at all. so it was hard to say who would be the winner. Boom! The burning heat and the ice power clashed together, causing a white mist to spread out everywhere. One could not even see their own fingers. But it was only temporary. As the blasting waves spread out, the white mist was blown into the sky, opening up the view in front of them. Swoosh! Yin Fengfeng stood on top of the mountain with the blue flame burning around her. The mountain under her feet started to defrost quickly, and with her as the center, the fire power spread out slowly. Countless ice pieces turned into water, flowing down to the bottom of the mountain with a crisp sound. Crack! The ice sculpture that sealed Hai Wuya suddenly exploded, and Hai Wuya was freed. Duanlingya, you are so despicable. Hai Wuya's face was even paler now. He had been wounded quite badly after battling with Lin Ku. Most importantly, Duanlingya's ice profound naturally countered his water profound. Judging on battling power, he was actually not that much weaker than Duanlingya. But under the situation of being countered, he knew that he would not be able to fight against Duanlingya. Plus, it was a sneak attack, which he could not react in time. Stepping on the ice flowers, Duanlingya walked over with his green hair. Hai Wuya, you were distracted. What does that have to do with me? If it were not for Yin Fengfeng, I would have made you lose all your face just now. You. Hai Wuya stared at Duanlingya angrily. Shoo! A beam of blue flame flashed past, and Yin Fengfeng appeared right next to Hai Wuya, standing right next to him. She was afraid that Duanlingya and Lin Ku would attack Hai Wuya together. Duanlingya's pupil shrank. Yin Fengfeng's speed was the thing that scared him the most. In fact, no one below the life and death realm would not be scared of her speed. Yin Fengfeng, don't worry. I will give you face. But I will not give face to the others. Whoever hurt you in Jia, stand out now. Duanlingya yelled. Yi Chen frowned. Lin Ku and Duanlingya were both extremely aggressive. No wonder they were able to hang out with people from the Yuan family. It is me. Yi Chen took a step forward. Good. You have guts. Duanlingya grinned, looking unfriendly. Duanlingya, what are you trying to do? Yin Fengfeng's eyebrows frowned. There seemed to be a blue flame burning in her pretty eyes. I am not trying to do anything. I just want to give my brother an explanation. Duanlingya took his brother disciple to the Sky Martial Pavilion to test his potential. The test did not take long, but after he got off the mountain, he realized that Lin Ku and Yuan Jia had disappeared. Then, he sensed that there was an energy vibration 100 miles away. Following the source of the vibration, he rushed over. Not to mention that Yuan Jia was in the wrong. Even if we were in the wrong, it would not be up to you to tell us what to do. Yin Fengfeng sneered. Oh, so you are trying to protect this brat on purpose. Duanlingya squinted his eyes. What if I am? What? That would mean that you are not giving me face. Since you are not giving me face, then why should I give you face? Duanlingya was not 100% sure that he could beat Yin Fengfeng, but the situation was quite good for them. That frozen land river attack of his had already wounded Hai Wuya even more. As long as Hai Wuya fell down, he and Lin Ku would be able to take down Yin Fengfeng easily. It was also the reason why he suddenly attacked Hai Wuya. Brother Duan, you stall Yin Fengfeng. I will take care of Hai Wuya. Lin Ku had already decided to attack, since this kind of opportunity was hard to come by. Alright, let's make it quick. Duanlingya's eyes were cold. The ice power outside his body kept on roaring, seeming like it could explode at any second. Brother Hai, let me help you. Yi Chen would not just sit and watch Duanlingya and Lin Ku get the upper hand. If he had no other choice, he would take out his semi-extreme rank great sword, the Thunder Disaster Sword. With the sword, even if he could not win against Lin Ku, he and Hai Wuya together would still stand a chance. Head sister disciple, let's go as well. Ling Tianhao and Miao Yin rushed up as well. Li Xiaoyan and Jing Aoshuan exchanged a look before flying behind Yin Fengfeng, and the rest as well. They did not have any grudges against Lin Ku and Duanlingya, but the two just annoyed them a lot. Plus, Yi Chen was from the southern region, so they would have to help their own people. Shoo! Shoo! On the other side, Duanlingya's two disciples stood out with an unfriendly expression. There were 7 people on one side and 4 on the other. It seemed like Yi Chen's side had the upper hand, but Hai Wuya was wounded after all, while Lin Ku's battling power was not affected that much. The two sides were hundreds of meters away from each other, facing each other quietly. Everyone watching held their breaths as they stared at the 11 people on the two sides without blinking. They knew that the battle between the two parties was about to explode, and it would be very intense. Cracking a smile, Duan Lingya lifted up his hand and said slowly, "Move." Before he could finish the word move, a handsome young man appeared out of nowhere on top of a mountain in the distance. He was wearing white robes that were embroidered with plums, orchids, bamboos, and chrysanthemums. He stood there quietly as a wave of powerful aura spread out. Under this powerful aura, everyone felt very small, as if they were facing the whole world, and the handsome young man was the center of it all. "Stop it. This is the territory of the Sky Martial Pavilion, not a place for you to fight." The handsome young man said lightly, By Wuxia. It is by Wuxia. One of the top 5 young warriors, by Wuxia. When did he get here? How come I did not know anything?" Everyone watching was shocked. Yi Chen frowned. He did not spread out his soul power at all times, so the handsome young man's appearance was very unexpected. Everyone here was at the Sea of Souls realm. Even if they did not have their soul power, their senses would still be very sharp. The fact that the handsome young man could appear out of nowhere meant that his power was indeed horrifying. Chapter 570. By Wuxia. Duan Lingya frowned as his raised hand slowly dropped down. If one were to say that he was scared of Yan Fengfeng, then he would be even more scared of the top 5 young warriors. The top 5 young warriors were the kings of the young generation in the Sky Martial region, and each of them had the power of a top master-level warrior. Although Du Gujue and Dantai Mingyue were very powerful, they were still young after all, and did not have enough time to accumulate. Compared to the top 5 young warriors, there was still a huge gap between them. The top 5 young warriors were all unpredictable. Even the famous master-level Sea of Souls realm warriors would not dare to underestimate them. 2 years ago, one of the top 3 master-level blade artists, Shen Qianlang, had lost to one of the top 5 young warriors, Xiao Chuha. Because of this, a lot of the powerful master-level warriors would choose to avoid the top 5 young warriors when they encountered them, since they were afraid that their reputation would be ruined. So, unless it was absolutely necessary, they would not face the top 5 young warriors head-on. As one of the top 5 young warriors, Bai Wuxia's power was earth-shattering. It was said that he was the only warrior below the life and death realm to walk out of the blood-crying ghost place alive in the past 20 years, which was a king-level forbidden place. Without king-level power, one would not be able to make it back. By Wuxia, we are already hundreds of miles away from the Sky Martial Pavilion. Please give us some face. Lin Ku did not want to give up such a great opportunity. Bai Wuxia said lightly, "Your brother Lin Tian would not dare to ask me to give him face, but you, as his brother, have walked ahead." Hearing him, Lin Ku's face darkened. He was the second successor of the Lin family, one of the top 4 families, while his brother Lin Tian was the first successor. The two had the same father but different mothers, but they were both very talented. But Lin Ku had only become famous in the recent years, while his brother Lin Tian was way more powerful and famous than him. He was one of the young warriors who had the highest chance of making it to the top 5 young warriors. "Lin Ku, let's go." Duan Lingya started to think about backing out. Bargaining with Bai Wuxia would be too unwise, since the weak would not have the right to bargain with the powerful ones. Compared to the top 5 young warriors, they would be the weak ones, which was an unchangeable fact. The 4 brought Yuan Jie, who was badly injured, and flew into the distance. Soon, they disappeared into the horizon. Bai Wuxia, we did not ask for your help. Yan Fengfeng did not have a good attitude towards Bai Wuxia. Others might be afraid of the top 5 young warriors, but she was not. With her super speed, even the top 5 young warriors would not be able to do anything to her, provided that they did not get too close to her. A rare smile appeared on Bai Wuxia's face. "What's wrong? Do you think I am helping you? Actually, your strength is comparable to theirs. I just don't like them." Hee hee. You by Wuxia do not hide your preferences at all. Yan Fengfeng chuckled. Obviously, Bai Wuxia's answer had satisfied her. Which one of you is Yi Chen? Bai Wuxia's gaze swept around before finally landing on Yi Chen. Yi Chen didn't know why she mentioned him, so he said, I am. Oh. Bai Wuxia nodded. He did not mean anything else. He was just surprised to see a purple name appear on the wall. Dugaju, Dantai Mingyue Yi Chen. It seems like our top 5 young warriors' positions are starting to be shaken. With a bright laugh, Bai Wuxia's body flashed, turning into a light white shadow and flying out. He was silent and fast like a ghost. Yan Fengfeng turned her head and said to Yi Chen, among the top 5 young warriors, Bai Wuxia is the most easygoing person, and he has killed the least people. Yi Chen nodded. I can feel that the killing intent on him is very faint. There are countless geniuses in the world. The only one that I admire is Bai Wuxia. He is untainted by dust and does not lose his sharpness. What is rare is that his talent is not very high. He is only ranked 28th on the Wall of Fame. However, his achievements are not inferior to the other 4 giants. Hai Wuya said as he spat out a mouthful of cold white qi. His complexion became slightly rosier. Yan Fengfeng shook her head. That was 5 years ago. If it were now, Bai Wuxia would definitely be able to make it into the top 10. Potential is not something that stays the same. In the end, it still depends on the individual. Being powerful is not really powerful. Having a strong heart is what makes a powerful warrior. Hundreds of miles away, Duan Lingya and Lin Ku were flying. Yuan Jia, what is that brat's name? Duan Lingya asked suddenly. Yuan Jia was badly wounded, so he said weakly, Yi Chen. Yi Chen. Duan Lingya's expression changed. What? Lin Ku asked. Duan Lingya said word by word. His potential is ranked 3rd on the wall. 3rd? Indeed impressive. No wonder he could compete with me in terms of aura. Lin Ku was shocked. Duan Lingya said with a low voice. It is not just 3rd. In fact, he is just as famous as Dugaju and Dantai Mingyue. He has passed all 7 challenges, and his name is Purple. What? Yuan Jia and Lin Ku's expressions changed. Who were Dugaju and Dantai Mingyue? They were the same kind of martial geniuses as Xianhou. In the past 1,000 years, there had only been 3 of them. In other words, with enough time, as long as they could continue to grow, they would be able to surpass the top 5 young warriors and become famous in the whole Sea of Souls realm. Yi Chen being able to compete with Dugaju and Dantai Mingyue. What kind of joke was this? Brother Duan, you are not joking, are you? Yuan Jie did not even care about his wounds as he said hurriedly. Duan Lingya glanced at him. Do I look like someone who is joking? Lin Ku's cold expression did not exist anymore. After changing his expression a couple of times, he said coldly, so what if he is just as talented as Dugaju and Dantai Mingyue? Even Dugaju and Dantai Mingyue would not dare to say that they would definitely be able to reach the life and death realm. Not to mention him. Yeah, how could he? Duan Lingya's 2 disciples agreed. Since we have already had conflict with him, then don't think too much about it. I, Duan Lingya, have never been afraid of anyone. One day, I will step on the top 5 young warriors as well. Duan Lingya cracked a smile, showing his white teeth. Martial geniuses were all proud, and they would not think that they were not as powerful as others. They were all extremely ambitious, and mere potential would not scare them. Looking at the battle scene, Yi Chen said, let's go. Yeah, it is indeed time. Hai Wuya nodded. He had been wounded quite badly, and would need to rest for half a month. Be careful on the way, Yan Fengfeng reminded him. Don't worry, the Sky Ocean Martial School is not that far from here. Then, we will leave now. Hai Wuya held his fists together before flying into the distance with his brother and sister disciples. Brother Yi, are these your friends? Watching Hai Wuya leave, Yan Fengfeng turned her head and looked at Li Xiaoyan and Jing Aoshuan. Yi Chen introduced, this is Li Xiaoyan, and this is Jing Aoshuan. They are both my friends. Then he said to Li Xiaoyan and Jing Aoshuan, this is Yan Fengfeng, the head disciple of the mysterious martial school. Your friends are quite loyal. Yan Fengfeng was very satisfied with what Li Xiaoyan and Jing Aoshuan had just done. Facing Lin Ku and Duan Lingya, they were still able to stand out, which showed that they were quite determined. Yichen is from our southern region. Of course we will stand out, Li Xiaoyan said naturally. He come to our mysterious martial school. Yan Fengfeng invited the two. Millions of miles away in the Thunder region, one of the top 4 danger places. Thunder Tomb Pap. In the center of the tomb, the frequency of the lightning was getting higher and higher. Within a blink of an eye, there would be at least hundreds of lightning strikes. After about the time it took to brew a pot of tea, endless lightning exploded. The eye-piercing light was extremely aggressive, looking like a bright white sun. There was a loud boom. The ground shook. In the center of the lightning explosion, a massive object broke out of the ground, shooting into the sky at a speed that was hard to be seen by the naked eye. It was a massive altar wrapped in twisted lightning, dragging a long lightning flow behind it. When the altar reached a height of 10,000 meters, the power disappeared, and it started to fall down. The intense pressure made the lightning in the air even more violent, bringing up endless explosions. Clang! The altar landed on the ground. It was a 400 meters wide and 100 meters tall 6-pillared altar. In the center of the altar stood a black-robed man. If Yi Chun were here, he would definitely recognize the identity of the black-robed man, because he was the Yin demon ancestor who had been trapped in the underground world. Yin demon ancestor was full of anger. He had been trapped in the underground world for 3 years. If not for the undying altar, he might have been trapped there for the rest of his life. During these 3 years, he had been hating Yi Chun every second. If not for him, he would have been able to obtain the secret art of the undying body 3 years ago, and would have been able to use the undying altar to escape and return to his world. Pop! The white light interweaved into the defensive layer of the altar, and Yin demon ancestor walked out. Damn it! Yin demon ancestor's palm struck the ground, causing the earth to shake. At this moment, seeing the light of day again, Yin demon ancestor felt a bit unreal. However, this feeling was soon replaced by a figure. Right then, there was only Yi Chun in his mind. He swore that he would make Yi Chun suffer a fate worse than death, and that he would not have suffered these 3 years in vain. In these 3 years, even if this kid's progress is shocking, he would not have reached the Sea of Souls realm. A mere astral-reaching expert is not worthy of my attention. Once I capture him, I will let him taste the feeling of suffering a fate worse than death. No, I will first make him hand over the undying body secret art. With it, my suffering during these 3 years would be worth it. Yin demon ancestor's eyes flickered, revealing a sneer from time to time. He seemed to have already seen Yi Chun kneeling on the ground, with a frightened expression. Wait for me, kid. I, Yin demon ancestor, have come for my revenge. Offending me is the biggest misfortune of your life. With a shoo, Yin demon ancestor turned into a black shadow and shot out. On the way, he made a grabbing motion with both of his hands, shattering 2 astral-reaching experts who were passing by. He really needed to vent his anger and frustration. These 3 years had almost driven him crazy. After all, 3 years was a very short time. Staying in one place for 3 years, without knowing when he would be able to get out, and not having the chance to go out in this lifetime would make anyone feel bad. Plus, he was not a normal person, but a master-level Sea of Souls realm warrior, who had the chance to reach the life and death realm. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.